I began to feel that I was losing my identity, that the person that I call Clay, the person who put me in this place, the person who volunteered to go into this prison, because it was a prison to me, it still is a prison to me. I don't look on it as an experiment or a simulation. It was just a prison that was run by psychologists instead of run by the state. I began to feel that identity, that the person that I was that had decided to go to prison was distant from me, was remote, until finally I wasn't that. I was 416. I was really my number, and 416 was going to have to decide what to do.
Once you put a uniform on and are given a role, I mean a job, saying your job is to keep these people in line, then you're certainly not the same person as if you were in street clothes and in a different role. You really become that person. Once you put on that khaki uniform, you put on the glasses, you take the nightstick, and you act the part. That's your costume, and you have to act accordingly when you put it on.
It harms me.
Why?
I mean harms. I mean in the present tense, it harms me.
How did it harm you? How does it harm you? Just to think about it, you mean that people can be like that?
Yeah. It let me in on some knowledge that I've never experienced firsthand. I've read about it. I've read a lot about it, but I've never experienced it firsthand. I've never seen someone turn that way. And I know you're a nice guy. You know?
Do
you understand? I do. I do know you're a nice guy.
Then why,
I don't get bad because I know what you can turn into. I know what you're willing to do. If you say, oh, well, I'm not going to hurt anybody. Oh, well, it's a limited situation. It's over in 2 weeks.
Well, you in position, what would you have done?
I don't know. I can't tell you that I know what I'd do.
Would you believe?
I don't believe I would have been as inventive as you.
You mean,
I don't believe I would have applied as much imagination to what I was doing. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
I think I would have been a guard. I don't think it would have been such a masterpiece.
I didn't see where it was really harmful. It was degrading, and that was part of my particular little experiment to see how I could...
Your particular little experiment.
Yes,
Why don't you tell me about that?
I was running little experiments of my own.
Tell me about your little experiments.
Okay.
I'm curious.
I wanted to see just what kind of verbal abuse that people can take before they start objecting, before they start flashing back.
Yeah.
Under the circumstances. And it surprised me that no one said anything to stop me. No one said, Carmen, you can't say those things to me. Those things are sick. Nobody said that. They just accepted what I said. I said, go tell that man to the face he's the scum of the earth. And they'd do it without question. They'd do push-ups without question. They'd sit in the hole. They'd abuse each other. And here they're supposed to have they're supposed to be together as a unit in jail. But here they're abusing each other because I requested them to. And no one questioned my authority at all. And it really shocked me. Why didn't people, when I started to abuse people so much, I started to get so profane that, and still people didn't say anything.
Right now, in this jail, I'm one of the staff psychologists. This I've been doing for 14 years, practically the length of time I've been away from Phil Zimbardo's experiment.
I can't say that. I'm fucked up. I don't know how to explain it. I'm all fucked up inside. I don't know. God damn it.
As an experience, it was unique. I've never screamed so loud in my life. I've never been so upset in my life. And it was an experience of being out of control, both of the situation and of my feelings. And maybe I always have had difficulty with the notion of losing control. I wanted to understand myself, so I went into psychology, so that the unconscious wouldn't so control me, as it did that whole experiment, that whole situation. I was confused. I didn't know what my role was. And I figured, well, I'm thinking now, I'll go into psychology, I'll learn what makes a person tick. I won't be so afraid of the unconscious. The Stanford prison was a very benign prison situation, and it still caused guards to become sadistic, prisoners to become hysterical, other prisoners to break out in hives. I mean, here you had a benign situation, and it didn't work. It promoted everything a normal prison promotes. The guard role promotes sadism. The prisoner role promotes a feeling of confusion and shame. Anybody can be a guard. It's harder to be on guard against the impulse to be sadistic, because it's a quiet rage, a malevolence that you can dam up, but there's nowhere for it to go. It comes out sideways, sadistically or whatever. Whereas I think you do have more control, maybe because this is my experience. Everybody needn't be a prisoner. I think if I went through the experience now, I wouldn't have been nearly so confused. I would have been able to do a lot of things differently and not have felt so unsure of what to do. I would have known much more about my options. And there are real prisoners I have met in jail who were people of exceptional dignity, who did not put down the guards, who are very respectful of the guards and do not create in the guard a sadistic impulse. And they could rise above the shame of the role, and they knew how to preserve their dignity within that situation.
Dr. Zimbardo, I'm concerned about the subjects. What happened to them afterwards?
Yeah, were there any long-term negative effects?
Happily, no. We did do extensive follow-ups, both bringing all the subjects back individually or in groups over a period of that first year, and then for the next 10 years we've surveyed them by mail and phone. And the consensus is that they did suffer during that week, but they learned a great deal about themselves and about human nature that most of them say was quite valuable. In addition, the effects were really situation-bound, limited to that situation for several reasons. One, we picked boys who were normal and healthy in every way, and so they were able to rebound back to that position of mental, physical health after they were out of that situation. And then we were able to explicitly make the point that what we saw, what they experienced, was the power of the situation. So it told us about the situation they were in and not anything about themselves. That what they did was not diagnostic of any personal pathology. It was diagnostic of the pathology of prison-like situations.
Why didn't you stop it sooner? It seems unethical to let it go on for so long.
It was unethical. There's no question about that. People suffered in this experiment as subjects. It went on too long because I got trapped in the dual role of principal investigator of the research project and prison superintendent of Stanford County Jail, which I never should have done. The other issue, the central issue about the ethics of this study weighs the cost to the subjects, which were real and tangible, their suffering, against possible benefits to them and benefits to science and society. And we were able to use this study to promote prison reform. Lastly, the study makes a very profound point about the power of situations, that situations affect us much more than we think, that human behavior is much more under the control of subtle situational forces, in some cases very trivial ones, like rules and roles and symbols and uniforms, and much less under the control of things like character and personality traits that we ordinarily think as determining behavior.
I'm a college undergraduate. I can't possibly imagine myself ever being a prisoner or a guard. What relevance would this have for the everyday person?
Yeah, and is there as much relevance for females as well?
Yeah, it's important not to think of this as prisoner, a guard in a real prison. The important issue is the metaphor of prisoner and guard. What does it mean to be a prisoner? What does it mean to be a guard? And a guard is somebody who limits the freedom of someone else, uses the power in their role to control and dominate someone else. And that's what the study is about. And so any situation you're in where there's this power relationship between husbands and wives and parents and children and teachers and students and doctors and patients and in the military and so many situations, we think this study has relevance for you. In thinking about this kind of research, we began to think, what are the situations in which people voluntarily give up their freedom? Well, the one obvious kind of person who internalizes both the prisoner and guard mentality, the part of you that says, you can't do it, which puts coercive limitations on you, and the part of you which says, okay, I have the ability and motivation, but if you say so, I won't do it, and limits his or her own freedom, is the shy person. And that we began to see shyness as a self-imposed psychological prison. And right after we finished the prison experiment, we began thinking about shyness and studying it, and it turns out nobody had ever studied it seriously. And so for the next 15 years, we have been doing research on shyness at Stanford, and then set up the first Stanford shyness clinic, the first shyness clinic in America, the Stanford Shyness Clinic. And so we went from imprisoning people in our experiment to doing research and then therapy, which has exactly the opposite goal, to try to help people free themselves from prisons that they create. So we think it has very important implications for all of us in our everyday life.